Welcome to day 4, everyone. Good to see such a energetic crowd Thursday morning. Woo! All right, so today we're going to talk about bootstrapping, and I have some amazing entrepreneurs who are either feeling that right now or have already felt that and grew past it. So I think we're just going to get right into it. Without further ado, let's introduce each other. Let's start by telling us about your company, who you are, your company, and product.
I guess I'll first in line now, but I'm Adam Clark. I'm CEO of Tangible Solutions. We are a contract manufacturer of 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants, and that's all we do. We started in a garage up in Fairborn about 6 years ago as a general additive manufacturing or 3D printing company, tools, jigs, fixtures, prototypes, that sort of thing. Started working with some other local medical device companies. They asked us to provide some expanded services, which we didn't offer at the time, mainly metal printing. And then we got into being a contract manufacturer and then shed all the other business outside of that and focused on the orthopedic market. So spine, hips, and knees are mainly what we 3D print in titanium, and that's tangible, and hand it off. You got one.
Hi, I'm Tom Heil. I'm co-founder of Covur. We do Wi-Fi marketing for small and local businesses. We actually started off as an electronics refurbishing out of my bedroom. And then we got into doing marketing for local businesses and doing IT, which kind of led into doing Wi-Fi solutions, which in turn helped us build a platform to do Wi-Fi marketing for local businesses. I won't take all the thunder because this is my co-founder, so I got to let him save something for him to talk about too.
So gracious, Tom. Thank you. I'm Michale Wicks. I'm the other half of Covur. We're super passionate about this local business customer segment, the owner-operator mom-and-pop shop. And we started out, it was in our DNA. I think we both came from the restaurant scene, and we came up in that. And we wanted to figure out how could we provide value to people like that. And I later went on to get an engineering degree. And so now I engineer startups. And I have a blast doing it, and I get to work with a good dear friend, so it's a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Chris Yancey, CEO and founder of Perma Edge Industries. I have a partner, Scott Doyle, couldn't be here today, but we developed a product for the hardscape landscape industry to be used as a paver edging. We both started out of a pool barn in early 2016 in the Xenia area. We currently manufacture and produce the product in Vandalia, Ohio. We sell in about 18 states now, sell straight to the distributor, and they pass it along to the contractor.
I'm Jerricha Hoskins. I'm owner of Arcani Coil Care. I make natural hair products. I started in 2016 in my kitchen, and I now ship nationwide, worldwide. I have about 14 retailers that sell my products. I opened my own storefront January of this year, and that's it.
All right, so you think about Silicon Valley, right, and these people starting up, these tech companies out of their garage. Let's give them a taste for that. So, how did it all start for you guys? We'll start here and go that way, but and some of you already glimpsed into that, but starting in the garage, or I had this concept, and this is kind of how it started and how I got it going. Where did it all start for you, Adam?
It's a great question. It was started, Chris and I, my business partner, we were in the defense industry. I was former Army and getting out, and that's where we met. 2012, some of you may remember there was sequestration, so some of us were getting laid off, and Chris had an idea for 3D printing. I really didn't understand what it was. I mean, I'd received prototypes, but I didn't know these are 3D printed. And I was more the business development guy, and Chris was the engineer behind things. We nestled up in a garage. We started to go door to door, literally with a box of 3D printed trinkets, and try to introduce ourselves to all the manufacturing companies around town. And really that was probably had a reverse effect where we started to understand what does a manufacturing plant look like, what does a good one look like, how does it operate, how does it act, how does it look, how does it feel, and taking all those lessons learned and having an opportunity to go door to door and see this, and then have opportunities with our customers asking about high volume 3D printed stuff was where we got. But to get to that point where we have metal printers, I mean, it was brutal. There was no money. We were broke. We were same typical story, but we maintained a vision of what we were wanting to achieve through a lot of heartache and a lot of mistakes too. I mean, we were really spread out. We were doing a lot of different things: plastics, metals, outsourcing, consulting. We just focused. That's probably what saved our company from. I mean, we were going down at a certain point because we were too spread out, and it was really scary. And at a certain point, you just got to kind of break things out. And I think as young entrepreneurs, you start to get into things, excitement and scaling and growth, and you just take a second to calm down. So it was a combination of bootstrapping, and I remember I sold a keyboard to have $10 so I could feed my family one night. To going from that aspect to managing $4 million in inventory and equipment, and having a fundraise, and people asking about how are you doing financially when you've never really seen a balance sheet, and educating yourself. I think that's why a lot of people who are don't come from the standard educational route have a great opportunity, because it fits their mold really well, because you have to be very dynamic and self-educator, and so it's kind of a combination like that. I hope I'm staying on point and keeping
that's
short.
Good.
Yeah, so that was awesome, very accomplished. As I mentioned, we started off as an electronics refurbishing company, and at the time I was going through a transition. We were in restaurants. I'd been a general manager for Bob Evans, and I actually got fired because I got robbed at gunpoint, which is another story. But so I was sitting on my couch and I was talking to Michael, as we did a lot, and he had done the eBay business on the side, and I was like, hey, we should maybe go into business together and start selling electronics. I think we could really make a go of it. And so he was like, yeah, maybe. So I started doing a bunch of research because I had a lot of time. And
You're underselling that, Tom. No, this is really what happened, okay? He turned around. I was like, hey, I think I'm selling these electronics on eBay. And about the next day, he literally reached out to me. He's like, I just found a lot of 10 Macs and a bunch of PCs that were off lease. And then I was like, okay, should we go into business together? And then it was off to the races from there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, we started doing really well. I'd buy these off-lease computers, fix them up, and, anything electronics, and we'd go and we'd turn around, we'd sell them on eBay, and we were actually doing very, very well for a good point in time. And then, yeah, exactly. And then I had kind of, obviously it wasn't enough to just pay all the bills, so I ended up taking another job with Frickers and was back into restaurant management. And they quickly found out that I had an affinity for IT, and had asked me to help out with a lot of their tech problems, which they had an enormous amount of. Right. So I was managing and helping out with IT, jumping around from store to store. Is very interesting. And just from my training at Bob Evans, you realize that one of the things that a restaurant business looks at is, customer feedback. And, they called it the leaky bucket at Bob Evans, where if one person left unhappy, they tell 10 people, and you never really realize how many customers you're losing. So really, I was talking to Michael again, and the electronics thing had kind of waned off a little bit, and we weren't doing as well as we once thought. And I was like, IT consulting for restaurants is a big thing. I've seen it at Frickers. Bob Evans didn't really have it together either, and they're a big company.
The pain was real.
Oh yeah. So we embarked on this mission to get this big, huge IT bid. And
built our own box.
Yeah, we built our own. Built our own router, our own networking solution, custom to all of Frickers, and we presented it to the CEO of Frickers. And we met at a restaurant, and we were super happy, super pumped, and they said,
Felt so good coming out of that meeting.
They said no. of course. They said
Actually,
no.
they didn't say no. That was the thing. So the silence was audible. We, like 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, 2 month went by, and we just kept getting on calls, and we were like, have you heard from Frickers yet? Have you heard from Frickers yet? Nothing. And
I worked for him.
And yeah, so it was getting a little awkward. So we went back and forth, and we were like, what did we do wrong? What happened? And it was at that moment when we realized we didn't put our customer first. We didn't listen to what their pain was, to what they needed, right? And so that's when we really kind of dug deep and started talking to our customers. So we got out of the hacking lab that you made in your spare office there in your house, and we started talking to these business owners, and we started asking, well, what keeps you up at night? Like, what do you really care about? You know, what was the biggest thing they said?
Well, the biggest thing they said was customers, not having sales. Sales keeps a lot.
They
a lot
were
of our
opening their
restaurants.
door and just like hoping that people would come in. And that's when we knew, like, whoa, there's an opportunity. If that's what keeps them up at night, how can we help them drive people back in their door and create kind of a loyalty program, right?
Yep.
And so then we really started hacking. We got some hardware, some Wi-Fi hardware. We started playing around with it. Where was our first pilot? Do you remember?
Well, our first customer was Chicory.
And then
Cafe.
before that, though, we did like an open air pilot.
Oh,
All right, let's bring it
Oh,
back
sorry.
in. Are we bootstrapping still?
Good job, Jordan.
All right.
Good job. Yeah, thank you.
getting off topic.
Squirrel. And Chris.
Yeah, so what's been great for us is I come from the industry of the product we developed. So we solved a problem. We knew there was a problem in the industry. I won't get into all that. A lot of you probably aren't so familiar with hardscapes, but we created a product for paper patios, and the edging product used on the edge was failing. So we knew there was a problem. Early 16, we really started meeting with engineers. We knew what we were looking for, but we're not engineers. We don't know products work. So that was a challenge. We went through 3 or 4 engineers before we found the right guy. The guy that knew our product, knew our industry, knew what we were looking for, and he was on board with us. And that's big. Finding someone that's on board with what you're doing, that's a big deal. So needless to say, we started mainly development stages. Started the business in March of 16. We quickly afterwards got a pool barn. Like a lot of you guys are saying, you start with what you got. My partner and I ran our own businesses, so we were feeding the company with our business. That's how we did it.
So prior to that, what was the point where you came and mixed these things together to even create that product?
So our product is similar to concrete, and guys in our industry were using a concrete product to edge, but they were having problems with the freeze and thaw. It was cracking and breaking. So we wanted to develop a product that was the ease of concrete, and again, we had to get an engineer. I knew there were things you could add to concrete to make it more flexible, to make it more permeable, things like that. So we took the help. Actually, the engineer we used, this guy developed, $5 billion bridges, so we found the right guy. He probably took the guy 10 minutes in his mind to say, this is what I would put in your product. But also, you got to be careful not to price yourself out of the market. Guys are using a product existing. You don't want to price yourself out because 3 of the keys we were looking for: don't price ourselves out of the market, something that's faster to install, and quality was number 1. Better, faster, and cheaper, or comparable in price. Our biggest challenge is we both came from contractor industry, so now we're looking at a manufacturing that neither one of us knew anything about. So it's research, reaching out to people that could help you, Fast Lane, Entrepreneurial Center, places like that knew a lot more than we could. And I'll speed it up here a little bit, but we got to give most of the credit to my partner. The guy designed a system to mix all of this stuff that, needless to say, is ingenious. We took parts from different industries, conveyors, concrete mixers, poly bins, and so we just threw this thing together to make it happen. Many challenges. I'm sure we'll get into that later on, but that's where we started. We're still somewhat bootstrapping. Revenue's helping, but we'll get into that, but thank you.
started my company with $237. I was sitting on the couch, like I had like health issues, like blood clots and stuff like that. So my husband was at work, and I'm like, man, I gotta make some money without like standing behind a chair because I'm a cosmetologist. I've worked with every product you can possibly think of in our industry. And I told myself, like, I'm gonna make like shampoos and conditioners. So I started researching like formulas and how to like make them. And I called my husband on his like midnight break. I'm like, I'm gonna start a hair product company. He was like, what? I'm like, I'm about to start a hair product company. He's like, okay, like, and I started it. Hold the mic up, all right. Can you hear me now? Okay, so I started with shampoo, conditioner, hair butter, and growth oil. And I made 10 bottles of each. So I started off with 40 bottles of my product, and it sold out in like a day. And then I just kept flipping the money over and over, and it grew into what it is now. I had no chemistry training, I went to Miami University for like 2 years, but it was for psychology and sociology, nothing to do with chemicals or anything like that. So other chemists like look at me like, how are you coming up with this stuff? And the information is there. The same books that you pay for when you go to college, like I can buy those too, and you just have to read them. So I'm still bootstrapping my business. I still take my revenue and pour it back into my business to grow it. This is gonna be very controversial, but I looked at it as like dealing drugs. Drug dealers do it all the time. They just flip the money over and over and buy bigger bricks and stuff like that. Understood? Right? Okay. So
Hopefully you're not telling us this from experience.
That's just, and I'm not a drug dealer. Never dealt drugs before. But I'm a soap dealer, and that's just the model that I use. This is my 3rd year in business, and I still take majority of my profits and create more inventory. That's it. I'm not a drug dealer.
That's good. All right, let's talk about challenges. We all face challenges. I know I've done some bootstrapping myself, and you come up against it. You're doing everything, right? I think for the most part, we're all solopreneurs or have a partner, and so when you're doing all those things at once and trying to drive this business, you've come up against challenges. Now, for this next part, I'll just say I won't make everybody have to have one. So I'll ask you guys who has had a challenge that they've come up against.
Yeah, when I think of challenges, I think both personal and professional. As an entrepreneur, it's life. It's just you live it every day. So it's tough. And I remember as you're bootstrapping, you're not paying yourself. You're pouring the money back into the business. For us, it was buying materials so we could continue to print while my wife's looking at me while we can't afford groceries this week. What the hell are you doing? And I remember we got in a huge argument, and she was in the bathroom. I was sitting on the bed, and I was looking at her, and she was like, "Why? Why do you keep going? Why? Just stop." And she was looking at me, and it was like a pivot point in our relationship. And I just looked up and I said, "Babe, you got to trust me." And in that moment, she turned. And what I learned was that while we were bootstrapping, in parallel to trying to raise funds for our vision of a factory, right? You don't have those funds yet. You're still raising them. Even if someone's committed, it's not done until it's done, and then it's got to get done and done again. And, there's a lot of legal, the time span when you're raising cash is not just when you have the commitment of the dollars. It's also the legal entities and stuff that have to follow. But what I lost was my passion. We had gone up and we were getting the same message. We weren't thinking dynamically about what we were selling. We weren't thinking about our customers or the investor at the time who was going to be looking at us. And we had started to get worn out physically, emotionally. We had been going 3 years now, and it's just brutal. I remember chasing a property investigator off my property while my kids were in the yard. I just happened to have a small bat in my hand. Like really, I was playing with the kids and I was like, but so you go through those trials, and I think as you're going through the storm and you're going down through it, that's what, it's all about building a strong foundation and doing things right versus taking the hard right over the easy wrong every time. And it's hard to do that, especially when you see shiny objects, and getting focused. Focus, focus, focus. I know it's painful. I know that opportunity will get you a $10,000 PO. I know this opportunity will open up maybe another door, but just focus. You got to focus. Develop a list of questions, and this is what we do. And I think by a lack of focus, being worn out, it can drive the business into the ground. And so you have to have an even playing field, with your family. Don't forget why you do what you do, because eventually why you do what you do will be gone if you don't remember that. If you don't take time to be with your wife and have a emotional, spiritual, business balance, that's the biggest thing I've learned. I mean, it's a spiritual experience to walk as an entrepreneur. You represent your community, your friends, your parents. Everyone's looking at you and like giving you a thumbs up, but they're just like, hey, thumbs up, I'm going to stay over here, okay? It's a lot of fire over there. I don't want to be there. And so you kind of get that look. But, I always tell people, your gut is for your decisions, your heart is for your feelings. Follow your gut as you go through entrepreneurship. So.
Yeah, I'd say one of the challenges, sleep is a big one. We've been doing this for about 3 years now in Covur, and I'm still a restaurant general manager, so I still work 50-hour weeks. So I never had to really, go through not having anything because I had a job to fall back on. But I have, sacrificed a lot of time, which is, you can't really buy. So when it comes to challenges, just finding that time and that balance is extremely difficult, especially when your heart is so passionate about, building this business and building this brand and making it to the next level. So it's super important to keep yourself grounded during that time and make yourself time for for yourself and for your family, if you have a family, because without that, it'll weigh very heavily on your emotions, and you get burned out very quickly. And when that happens, it's very hard to make the correct decisions. I mean, it's hard to make the correct decisions anyway, but it's even harder when you're burnt out and you've lost that passion. So I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge is finding that balance as an entrepreneur in your life.
Yeah, thanks. Hello? Hey, there we go. Hey, yeah, thanks for the personal side of entrepreneurship. I don't think it gets spoken about enough. From the professional side, I think a lot of our challenges in Covur starting out was just trying to find cash. Like, where do we get cash? How do we get access to some capital? And getting extremely creative about that, right? I remember, time and time again, basically at the end of Tom and our, calls, they would always end up, but how do we pay for that? It would be so great if we could do this, right? So we started to get really creative about how to fund the next step. As you said, kind of turn it over and get the next stage there. So we started entering pitch competitions. We started learning how to pitch, how to tell your story really well, and so that people can kind of get on board with it and get invested in it, both emotionally and also with their dollars. So we started getting on that part of it, and we won a couple early pitch competitions that gave us a bit of seed capital that we needed. And we didn't need much. We're talking, a couple grand. That was about it. And that's all we really needed to kind of get something out there. The rest of it, we made it in-house, and then start listening to that customer. So, when we talk about bootstrapping here, there are kind of avenues out there for a lot of you that aspire to be entrepreneurs or are entrepreneurs and are kind of struggling and hitting that wall of like, yeah, but I just don't have the capital yet. There are a lot of like non-dilutive funding, like pitch competitions. We have a lot here in Dayton to really just be on the lookout for, and don't be afraid to kind of get out there and kind of pitch to it.
Bootstrapping, for me, I just think time and money. Those are the two basic things. I mean, you need money, and it's going to take a lot of time. Don't cut yourself short. It's going to take a ton of time, especially if you're bootstrapping. you're working a day job or running another business, you're gonna have to double down. But at the same time, like you said over there, you also have to make the time to keep yourself healthy, spend time with your family. That, you know, you definitely need the support. I told someone earlier before this started this morning that if I could look back 3.5 years ago, if I would have realized the cash that it would have taken to get where I'm at, I probably never would have done it, because I wouldn't have thought myself capable of doing that. One of the biggest things I could say is, you know, if you have your friends or family that you're going to lean on, maybe try to establish those relationships prior. Now, I'm not telling you not to plan. Planning's huge, but at some point you just got to go for it too. You wait too long, you miss opportunity. Grab a hold of that. So cash has been the toughest for us, the cash flow. As we scale, it continues. You know, it was harder in the beginning, of course. We do have revenue now that makes up for that, makes the desperation a little less. But as you grow, depending on what type of business you have, you've got operation costs, marketing costs, facility costs that are all going to grow up with you. So in my mind, you know, I think back to, at the beginning, when I said, you know, if we could sell 5 skids of this stuff a week, I'll quit my day job. We're selling quadruple that. I still can't quit. I mean, I have pretty much, but you know, you have to think about those things, and but don't be scared of it either. You know, do what you need to do and go after it. But the time is definitely something, especially if you're working another job to support that business, that you're going to have to manage wisely, especially if you have a family.
Okay, so my challenge is not so much a problem for me, but for everybody else. When I started my company, I'm in a community who, when they see something, they want to copy it. And one of my most popular products people were trying to duplicate it. So I kind of created, some people started to hate me because I spent money on lawyers to shut those businesses down, because this is the sole way that I take care of my family. And people don't understand intellectual property, copyrights, trademarkings, and things like that. And they're so used to, oh, I see that, I'm gonna do that. They weren't used to coming up on companies that fought those things. So when I began passing out, cease and desist letters, people were trying to copy my logo. People were coming out with names, somebody came out with, I'm gonna say it, they came out with my company is Arcani Coil Care, and they named the company She Crown. And I had to send her a cease and desist. She used the same jars as my product and everything. And customers on the outside were like, well, that's mean, and you're trying to stop other people's business. And it's like, no, this is how I feed my family. So yes, I'm going to shut everything down that is a threat to this. Well, not necessarily a threat, but I'm not even going to give you a leg up. As far as cash flow, I would say, if I ever ran into cash flow problems, I just literally my business has grown organically. I just hired a marketing team. So all the sales that I have been from word of mouth and just social media, people seeing my stuff and seeing my clients here and things like that. So anytime I ran into a cash flow problem, I would make a post like, what product do you guys think that we should make? What product do you need from us? And I would watch the comments, and I would come out with the product, and then they buy that. And then when cash flow issues came again, I just keep creating products so that you have no choice but to shop with Arcani Coil Care. I guess my biggest challenge right now is that I'm kind of like a villain, but I don't care because I'm trying to be a billion-dollar company.
Every hero needs a villain. So we just talked about challenges, but without opening it up to what kind of at the heart of bootstrapping is right, money, right? So you guys did a good job of staying away from that as we talk about challenge, but let's open it up. So, you need money in order to scale, right? And so there lies a challenge right there. So let's talk about, the next, what has challenges been where money is involved, or, if I got this piece of equipment, then I could scale, but I don't have money to buy that piece of equipment. So do I go out and get a loan, or do I? So let's just talk about what are some of those challenges, the money challenges, the scaling challenges that you've come up against, and are you still up against them, or, did you surpass?
Talk to that a little bit. Here we go. You hear me? So about 3 years in, we started looking for cash. Someone coming up and saying, "Hey, you want to be a contract manufacturer of 3D printed titanium orthopedic implants?" Took cash. What was interesting was to go out and find the people, make introductions. It was actually at an event like this here in Dayton where we started to, network, find folks that understood what a fundraise was and what we were looking for. And every situation's different. So I could sit up here and tell my story, but your story is going to be a little bit different. The way you pull the funds together and the dynamic areas in which it's going to come from are, looking for investors who are interested in your industry. It's also going to, be understanding that it's going to probably change the culture a little bit and the power curve and who's answering to what. I mean, you're responsible for that money, so it's got to be answered for. And that's not typical. It was kind of hard for me to swallow a little bit. The whole equity thing and debt. Don't worry about worry about your equity. I mean, don't be just giving it up. There's a lot of instruments to go out there. The way we did it is we went towards the SBA loan. We started to. That was a really tough process. I mean, if you're going to start going out for the cash and you start needing it, do it early and start making those connections because it takes time. Banks. And certain people are going to just look at numbers solely based on, what does your balance sheet look at, and other people are going to look at who's involved in the business. I don't care how much revenue they have right now, and I don't care that it's going to take 3 years. They're looking at who's in charge and what's their end goal. So having an end plan, people would ask, like, what's your goal out of all this? I didn't really have one. I just wanted to build a huge manufacturing business. I was based right here in Dayton, Ohio, and provided the best, out here in America. And that was, I didn't have a good answer. And so, raising the funds and going a traditional route, we went through a municipality as well, some private investors, and we were able to really maintain a lot of our equity share as well. We didn't understand a lot of the terms, a lot of the legal docs are going to be super scary to read through, and you're going to do everything in your power to avoid reading it until about 1 a.m. because you don't understand it. Just read it, and as I went through them, I would just highlight words. I had no idea what they meant, and then would Google them later after I read the full document and go back. And the thing I learned too is investors, people who are looking at the business want to know, what questions do you have for them? What do they have out of it? What's their interest in it? And then, the way we pulled our capital together was through traditional financing, and then we had some people come in on top of that, and then a municipality, and we were able to kind of package this up. You may not need that, but getting creative about your story and not being afraid either. We actually drove to Huntington headquarters in Columbus because they told us no originally, but they had some feedback for us, and they gave us an opportunity to provide them feedback because 3D printing is new. And we had to go explain to a room of 10 bankers that their pro forma, which they created on their own, was wrong, and we had to prove them wrong. And once we proved them wrong, we actually got approved for the loan. And if we had just taken that, saddled up, and walked away, it would have never happened, and we would have gone a totally different route. So, being creative about the cash and why, and be lean as possible. Cash will disappear so freaking quickly if you are not in revenue. Trust me. I've lived through it, and it is hell. It was the second hell that we went through. And we were able to pull out of it, but save that cash. If you don't need it, don't freaking buy it. If you don't need just stay in bootstrap mode as long as possible, even if you've got cash. It's so important. You don't know what's going to happen. We get into customer cycles, and we think that's going to hit. Well, one of our customers had a problem with a European product, held up on POs for a year. And it was our biggest customer. So we had spent more money than we had, brought on some more people than we needed. We were kind of don't do any sort of anticipatory spends. Oh, we're going to get this business, so we're going to ramp up over here. Now, I'm not talking, little investments here and there, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to kind of continuously grease the machine that is your business. But hiring new people and expanding on your big marketing spends, things that you're not going to necessarily receive an ROI on within the next year, don't spend it. And that would be kind of my message. I get passionate about that one. So
That's good.
yeah.
Vice.
Yeah, it's great. So, as Mike kind of alluded to early on, we didn't really have any money. We just had the little bit we had made for the electronics company, and so Michael went off to Notre Dame to get his degree. So in the early days, a lot of our, entrepreneurial ties stemmed from that university, and they have a really good ecosystem for startup culture there too. And so I don't remember how we found out about the competition, but it was a Schurz competition at Notre Dame, and it was this marketing company, where this tech or media conglomerate that was putting on this competition. So we decided to enter it, and we had literally thrown together an MVP that we had designed, and I think maybe we had 2-3 customers, maybe just in trial stage, and we got up there and we won. So, which was really, a really good time. And it gave us we won $5,000. So that was, put right back into the business. And then that led into a high potential startup grant from the state of Indiana for $25,000. So we had $30,000, and the next day it was gone. And so to allude to kind of, well, yeah. So you wouldn't believe how fast money goes. And even though we got that $30,000, that did help us, to get started. And it really, $30,000 to us was like, oh my God, that should be enough to last us for 5 years. But it didn't work out that way. And, you try to make the right decisions. And we had got to a point with that $30,000, we made it up to 15 customers, and we were up to 20 customers, we went up to 25 customers. Guess what? It's just us. We both still have day jobs, and we're trying to run the business too. Well, now not only with customers, guess what? Now you have customer support. So now we're not only doing customer support, but we're also doing new sales, and we're doing installations, and we're trying to build the platform, and we're trying to, think about the next big thing. And so that kind of alludes to this thing about focus. It's really easy to lose your focus in that. So what do? You bring on someone else to help you with sales. Well, I don't know if anybody knows about staffing in the restaurant industry, can speak to that. It's hard to find the right person. Very hard to find the right person. And when you're met with a limited amount of funds, the restaurant industry always say it takes $5,000 to train one person. And if I can just tell you that the average turnover rate in the restaurant industry is like 184%. So if you think about that as a whole, how many people you're training to find one good person, and if every single person costs you $5,000 to train, it adds up really quickly. So $30,000 goes very fast. And so then, you kind of face with the thing like, what do you do? How do you do it? And then you cut people off, and then you kind of start over. But I will say about bootstrapping, what it's really helped us do is stay really nimble. Like we've been able, since we didn't take big investments or anything like that, to really mold our company into what our customers have said or what we've seen and what we feel the next step is. And it's been a lot easier for us to do that, having that bootstrapping and not taking the big investment pieces.
Yeah, I can't agree enough. That's a really great segue too. One of the things that I've been really challenging myself to do and think kind of think bigger about business. But that being said, not all businesses are going to be a venture deal. And this is something that kind of I don't think enough people really talk about. No one said this to us, at least early on. If you don't have $1 billion market cap business or higher, you're probably not a venture deal. All right, I feel like Jeff Foxworthy here. You're probably if you can't grow $100 million in revenue in 5 years, you're probably not a venture deal, right? But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with growing $100 million, even a $10 million business. It has significant impact on an ecosystem. You make jobs. You learn so much, right? So I think a lot of people, especially in the tech industry, in software and in hardware, we see a lot of people trying to map their business to what this venture deal should be to go and raise. And I think a lot of businesses, you see the bottom fall out, and you wonder, well, what happened in kind of the, post-mortem there? And it's because they were never a venture deal. They didn't really have product market fit, or the market wasn't as big as they said, right? So for us, this is really the thing that kind of we wish we would have known early on. We just still don't know what Covur is. We're still reinventing it and figuring out, how big is this thing? And, Gail, shout out to Gail out there with ESP. She's been so supportive in all of our efforts in this ecosystem especially. But we just keep kind of coming back to that. Is it a venture deal? Could it be bigger than we're thinking about it? And I would encourage all of you with all your businesses, if you're thinking that way, start there. Just figure out how big is this market, and that will help you navigate where should I try to fund this thing. If it doesn't answer those questions, then you need to go to friends and family, or you need to try to figure out some creative ways. Go garage sailing, go flip some things on eBay. We did it, it works. And really try to make things work that way.
As far as scaling and bootstrapping, to me, I mean, to each business that's different. Whether you've got a service or a product, whatever that may be. So scaling, I think you need to realize: is that more employees? Is that a bigger facility? Is that equipment? I think that's where planning is very important to hit those goals. To hit those points and realize, what do we need next to get to the next step? Most people that have products, they don't have a product, it's going to kill you if you get something on back order. So I think that's important to realize. For us, it has been. It's been instrumental to kind of have a vision and say, when we get to this point, is the equipment we have able to keep up with the demand? If we sell this much. And on top of that is, everyone needs to remember, if it's a product or even it's a service, sales is trump. Go nail the sales. Sales will answer a lot of your questions, your money problems, usually, if you've got some money coming in. But it has been tricky. You definitely got to be resourceful, whether that's friends and family. Recently we had a ton of travel that came up. We started working with some new clients that were all over the Midwest. I was the one doing that, running out doing the sales. I had a truck that had 180,000 miles on it. We worked it in two ways. Let's go finance a new truck. This truck's paid off. We've got 25 grand we can make off that truck and throw in our bank. Yes, did we incorporate a $700 a month payment? Yeah, but now we've got a brand new truck that's reliable on the road. It's little things like that that'll move you along. We talked earlier a story just not too long ago. It's constant cash flow. When you get to these points, and it's nice if you have a couple people on the hook that say, hey, we don't need the money right now, but what are you good for if we do? Whether that's friends or family. Hey, are you good for $5,000 short-term loan? Those are the things that are nice to have on the forefront, so when you run into the problem, you're not scrounging. Who do I call? What do I do? We got checks about to bounce. A true story, a couple months ago, we had 3 large checks in the mail. They're in the mail. And we've got bills going out. I called one of my resources, says, hey, I need $6,000. Can you do a short-term loan? 7 days. When do you need it? I need it right now. I'm in a meeting. I head to the bank. I'll wire it over to your bank. The same time he's going to the bank to wire the money, I'm at the PO. Guess what? $60,000 check in the mailbox. I was able to call the guy, say, hey, have you took that money out yet? No, I'm at the bank. I'm about to. You don't need to do it. We got our check. But those are the things that if you have on the front end, it'll calm your stress to know. But like he said down there, work like you're bootstrapping as much as you can. Even when the money's good, try it out, and it's tough. It's tough. Hey, we need new chairs in our conference room. Let's go buy some chairs. Do what you need to do, but try to do that until you're extremely comfortable.
Okay, so my challenge, as far as, I guess you would say, funds, is I don't have connections to investors or family that has the family that I do have. They're my 75-year-old grandparents. They don't have $20,000 to invest into my business. I've been funding this alone, and I know my challenge now is I know the potential of my business. I know how much it can grow, and it's more so trust with me. Who can I trust these people who are offering to invest without trying to snatch my company from up under me, because I don't have a lot of knowledge in that area. Marketing, I didn't know what marketing was. I didn't even know that what I was doing was marketing. I do know that marketing would take my business to that next level. But then I'm like, okay, if I do the marketing, then I have to make all the inventory for when the marketing comes, and I'm doing this alone. So I take pride in the fact that alone last year, without people giving me money or writing checks or anything, I made $250,000 out of my kitchen. So I do know, thank you. So I do know that I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I can maintain where I am now, or I can allow people to come in and help me get to that next level. It would be nothing for me to be $1 million company if I had the resources and the team, a trustworthy team. If it wasn't just me making products, and I could, hire people in my community and say, okay, well, you're responsible for this. I have 26 products, and I am currently making them in my dining room now. So it's like, I know what needs to be done. It's just me. My challenge is letting go of a piece of my baby. That's just what it is at this point.
Is that how you're scaling right now? Kitchen dining room, kitchen dining room, living room?
Yes. And I utilize like my store space. I have like a 1,500 square foot storefront, so I have space where we make products. Like yesterday, we were in there labeling products and stocking the shelves, and it's just a process. But I still tell everybody that asks me, like, well, what should I do? I still tell everybody, I don't care if you have the money, you just have to leap. If I didn't take that leap and spend that $200 on those ingredients and those bottles, it wouldn't be where it is today. If I just sat around like, what if this doesn't happen? I have 6 kids. It's going to happen. Whatever I gotta do, it's going to happen, except sell drugs. But,
That's right.
But yeah, I guess that's what I would say my biggest challenge is. I still make money. I just know that I could make more if I had that extra, but that's all.
So, yeah, this could be a 4-hour session, and we could entertain the whole time, because I'm sitting here like I got 15 more questions I got to ask. I'm not going to do that, but so I think that as we run out of time, I'd love to kick it out to the audience. As Jerricha just did, highlight kind of where you're at. So she just said $250,000 in sales, 26 products. Anything else you want to add to that? But that's what I want to see. Like, let's give the audience a glimpse of how well you guys are off and kicking, and you've bootstrapped, and hopefully some of the difficult stuff, more difficult stuff, is behind you. Although there's always going to be difficulties in entrepreneurship. But let's give them a little highlight of where you're at now, where your business is.
First off, you need to keep doing what you're doing. Straight up. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Yeah, you're doing a great job. Right now, let's see here. So our operation was, a multi-million operation to stand up to become an ISO certified contract manufacturer. So it took a little bit of meat and bones to actually pull that infrastructure together, kind of in a facility about this size. We had to bring in some engineers to help with things. Got a staff of about 12 people right now. I'm the only one still doing the marketing. We feel pretty great about where we're at right now. We're going to a conference next week. We're booked up 2 days solid with one-on-one meetings with some of the biggest customers in the industry right now. We're making a name for ourselves. Thank God for passionate customers, or patient customers, I should say. Patient investors, patient wife, children, all that stuff, because you're gonna royally screw up. And we royally screwed up about a year and a half, 2 years ago, because we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we had plastic printers going to metal. I mean, that's like going from high school baseball to major leagues. We just got our teeth kicked in. And I mean, so far to the point that we thought we were going to like go down. It was going to be bad. But we were able to pull it off, look at our surroundings around us, and work with our customers, start talking terms, start understanding our finances, the flow of the cash, how does it hit, what are the going and asking our customers, hey, when historical product lines, 3-4 years, can you give me that data? And we're like, oh yeah, here. It gives us a sense of their ordering patterns. What are they going to hit? When are they going to launch? How many are they going to order per month? What does that mean? Because most of our customers are multi-year contracts that you tend to get into unless you royally screw up. So, it's kind of like we're definitely not like out of the early phase, but we've certainly matured in our understanding of our customer base, and I attributed that to being extremely focused as well. So, kind of finding maturity and getting our feet underneath us is where we are. We could still, anyone could still screw up at any time. So that's why I talk about staying lean forever. Like just stay lean. I mean, there's no reason to spend money you don't need to spend. So, sorry,
Are you international? Are you? And two-part question. Are you now recognizing that from the beginning you had, you were doing 1,000 unit sales, and now we're doing 10,000 unit sales? Or what's that
right.
look
Yeah.
like?
So our customers sell internationally. So we sell, like a company like Stryker or Zimmer or someone, if you're familiar with those, they design orthopedic implants. Sometimes they'll make them themselves. We are a contract manufacturer. So like NuVasive, we'd be, there's an opportunity where we could 3D print their stuff, different strategy, but so they would sell internationally. We do have customers starting to find us from France. Europe was really big with additive, farther in history than the U.S. was, the acceptance of it. So, they have we have established competition over there, but we're starting to see more inquiries because we have been able to scale our operations from an additive standpoint, and now I'm starting to get like a little too in the weeds of what we do. But because of our focus, we've been able to develop a niche and get really good at it, and be able to expand it and build a name like we are those guys. We don't do that, we don't do this, we are these. This is it. This is all we do. So don't call us. And now people aren't calling us unless that's what they want, because they know we don't do that, we don't do this, we only do this. So
It's good.
yeah. I think I'm done. I'm sorry.
You're awesome, man. This
This
is
is like rambling, so you got to shut me up at a certain point. Yeah.
Just on and on.
Here you go.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there you go. So we're an Internet of Things company, IoT company, with kind of a SaaS offering on top of it. The curve looks a little different. Yours is probably pretty capital intense. Ours is just us, and so we're kind of building things, but then you have to kind of spend money to make money, and then you hope that it kind of shoots up on the other end. So we're at about 4K MRR right now. We've had a lot of interns, a lot of freelancers. We've created a couple jobs here and there throughout our history. And yeah, I think we're just trying to provide value and get to the next stage. We're about to hopefully ink a partnership deal with our first marketing agency here pretty soon. I think that's going to represent kind of the next chapter of our business and how we scale out. Like we said, we're a pretty lean shop. So I think that's going to, basically, we've really tried to curate marketing agencies that have our customer segment's best interests in mind. And we think we found someone finally that we can kind of go through that. So we're going to go that way.
God, the music means we have to stop.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Very quickly.
Okay, real quick. So,
And then we already did Jerricha, so you're fine.
The kind of the timeline with our business, we started in 16. We sold our first skid, went from about 4,000 in sales in 16 to 50,000 sales in 17. About in 18, we did 160, and then this year we're right at about 300,000. In retrospect, this year we anticipate doing around 800,000 to 1 million in sales this year. Our products are used outdoors, so the rainy weather across the Midwest is heavily affected. We've had actually record sales for actually the months prior to us. So things are going really good. We've had a lot of help from the Entrepreneur Center, Fast Lane. Reach out to your resources, reach out, network. One quick thing to say we talk so much about being lean in your business, especially, you also have to think, if you can get out there and brand yourself that much quicker with help of somebody, you need to look at that opportunity too. Doesn't necessarily mean don't give away the house, but you know, those are things. Sound like you have a great product, and that definitely is something you need to look at. It may weigh out giving some away in some circumstances. But anyways, thanks everybody. It's been great.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I wanted to add just a little bit more. So currently, I have about 4 more retailers that are about to be on board. Las Vegas, New Jersey, Atlanta, and Florida. I actually have 5 more. It's going to be 2 of them in Florida. And my first year sales, 2017, was $68,000, and 2018 was $250,000. So in 1 year, I scaled it to that out of my kitchen. I have, like in my storefront, I've hired a young lady part-time. She runs my store part-time so I can do production and shipping. I am an international company, and I did that out of my kitchen without a marketing team. And I just hired a marketing company, and they started day before yesterday. I literally just hired them Tuesday. So I'm excited to see like what they do and how they help me to take it to that next level. But, yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. If people want to grab a quick coffee, fill their cups, we'll get started here as soon as we flip the stage for our next session. On the main stage, we